Hello, my name is Lee Presser. This is my show. I speak frequently to very interesting people. Some of these conversations are so exciting, so intellectually stimulating, I thought others might like to listen in. This is the reason we started recording Conversation with Lee Presser.
Welcome to Conversation with Lee Presser. A general contractor is responsible for the day-to-day oversight of a construction site, management of vendors, management of the trades, and communication of information between involved parties throughout the course of a building project. In the St. Louis area, the voice of contracting companies is represented to the government, the public, and other interested parties by the Associated General Contractors of St. Louis. On issues affecting the industry, AGC speaks to the governor, the state legislature, state agencies, and to the press with a unified voice. Our guest today is Leonard Toenjes, the president of the Associated General Contractors of St. Louis. Mr. Toenjes has been its president since January 1996. Leonard Toenjes, welcome to Conversation.
Thank you, Lee. Nice to be here.
So let's just get right to it. What is the purpose I just said what the purpose is. What motivated people to get together to create the Associated General Contractors?
Well, I think the motivation for the creation of AGC really had to do with the fragmented nature of our industry. I think if we look at beer brewers, there's one big beer brewer. If we look at airplane builders, there's one big airplane builder. If we look at utilities, there's one big utility or two big utilities. When you look at the construction industry, it's extremely fragmented, extremely competitive. There are literally hundreds of general contractors, hundreds of subcontractors, hundreds of suppliers. And without a unified direction or without a unified voice, they were all getting lost in the economic structure of the construction industry that they have to deal with. So AGC of St. Louis was formed in 1949. That was a merger of two different groups. There was a Municipal Contractors Association that represented the horizontal contractors who did road work and sewer work and those sort of things, and a Builders Association that represented the building folks who built hospitals and schools and those sort of things. Those two groups merged and affiliated with AGC of America so that there's a strong voice at the national level, there's a strong voice at the state level, and a strong voice at the local level through that collective action. Also, I would say that they were formed not just for the legislative issues, but also there was a lot of labor reform going back at that time in the early 40s, a lot of Davis-Bacon laws and a lot of things that were coming out of the Roosevelt administration were starting to take effect in terms of that, and I think the contractors needed a more unified voice to work with labor, to negotiate labor contracts and set terms and conditions. So those two things I think really drove the formation of AGC, and those are still our two pillars today.
Mm-hmm. There is also AGC of Missouri,
yes,
which is, it's similar but a different organization from yours, right?
Yes.
You're not part of that. That's even though they call themselves of Missouri, they're like a side by side to you. You're not part of the Missouri organization.
That's correct. AGC of America is basically a federation of independent associations. So AGC of St. Louis was formed in 1949. AGC of Missouri was formed back in the early 1900s. In Illinois, there's a Southern Illinois Builders Association, SIBA, that is affiliated with AGC of America but doesn't call themselves AGC. There's a Central Illinois Builders Association in Springfield that is affiliated with AGC but doesn't call themselves AGC. So there are 95 independent chapters across the country that are loosely federated through AGC of America. Each has its own independent board. It's a real bottom-up structure rather than top-down. AGC of America does not dictate the terms and conditions of how the local chapters are operated. The local chapters are really the root if you will. That's really where the authority lies, and they all appoint people to the AGC of America board and drive things that way. So it's a good relationship. Basically, we buy national services from them, and they use us as a local distribution network for their programs and services.
And you're going to be merging with an organization.
Right. There's been a movement on, I think, as we've seen in the construction economy and in almost every part of our economy, geography means less and less every day. The electronic communications, the ability to use your iPad and go anywhere in the world means that our contractors can basically go anywhere in the world. Our contractors are traveling all over the state, all over the country, all over the world. So these geographic designations from AGC of America are really meaning less and less as we go forward. So we've really been in a situation where we're working much more closely with the other chapters. AGC of Missouri represents the horizontal folks, the highway and infrastructure folks in outstate Missouri, away from St. Louis. So their executive director left some time ago, and now we're in a situation where they're looking at, hey, as geography does mean less, and as we have more of an opportunity to build a stronger organization by combining, we are probably 90% of the way done with that. There's a saying that a journey of 100 miles is halfway over after you've traveled 90 miles. And we have traveled 90 miles right now. So we are at the voting stage. The vote is out in the field.
And these are the owners of the contracting companies that have a vote in this?
Correct, okay. Correct. The eligible voting members in each association, they have the same ballot. They're each taking an independent vote. Those votes will be tallied next week or the week after. And we're looking at the end of October making an announcement about this merger. The voting is looking good right now, but as I said, we're still got that last 10 miles to go.
We're now, right now it's October of 2014. In August, when Missouri had its primary, there was an issue on the ballot which would have provided more money for the Missouri Department of Transportation. I believe it was called Amendment 2. And
it was Amendment 7. Amendment 7.
And when that was defeated, then there was some consternation among contracting companies that were like, oh my, how are we going to be hired in order to maintain these roads? And then you were at well, you've been at numerous discussions. I saw you at one at the Show Me Institute. And one of the points that you were making was that many of your contractors, as you just said a few minutes ago, they're not just hanging around in Missouri. They're like looking for work. If MoDOT's not going to put them to work, they'll go see if IDOT or Texas DOT or
yes,
Tennessee DOT
exactly.
or whomever. Is this a real movement now? Are we seeing the larger contractors are not moving out of state, but operating more out of state?
What we've seen since the defeat of Amendment 7 is exactly that. We were at the watch party on election night, on primary election night, and myself and our governmental affairs vice president were standing there watching the results and watching.
Didn't take long,
things
did it?
Slowly. No, it was over early. We didn't have to stay late that night. But she looked at me and said, boy, this is terrible. A lot of our contractors are going to go out of business now. And I said, no, they're not going out of business. They're going out of state. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what's happening. Millstone Weber, one of our largest contractors, is working in Indiana now. They're working in Texas. Pace Construction, another big asphalt company who's a member of ours, they've maintained their offices in St. Louis, but they're doing a tremendous amount of work in Arkansas right now. Arkansas passed a half-cent sales tax for transportation back in 2013, and they're starting to realize the benefits of that. We are seeing people migrate outwards. I was talking to one of our equipment dealers. The equipment dealer told me he was talking to one of his customers, and the customer said, I have two pieces of paper on my desk that I don't want to sign, but based on what happened with Amendment 7, I have to sign them. One is my application for my business license in Oklahoma. The other is my application for my business license in Arkansas. And that's where they're going. There's too much capital investment.
Are they leaving the state of Missouri, or they're going to maintain their headquarters here and do business there?
That's what they're doing. Because of the technology and because of the ability to work remotely, you know, so many of the DOTs now, everything's electronic with them. It's electronic plan review, electronic bid submittal, electronic payment, all that sort of thing. So they are maintaining their offices in Missouri, or their home offices. They're not, frankly, it doesn't make any difference where you're located. It's where the work is, and they can mobilize their forces, send their equipment down. It's created a whole new set of issues for them, but frankly,
now,
it's
here's
working
a
quite
question,
well.
though. I mean, really, okay, so your engineers, you know, your foremen, these are non-union guys. Your equipment, that belongs to you.
Yes.
Can you send your union guys from Missouri to Texas or to Indiana? Or do they have to pick up locals there and hope for the best?
I think they can send their people if they need to, but the primary operating mode is that they will take a couple of supervisory personnel and hire the field labor locally. That's been the more standard operating procedure, and it does create a separate set of challenges. It's more cost effective. By the time they would take somebody from here and pay their lodging and their travel and their per diem and everything else, it just gets cost prohibitive. So they'll take key personnel that can manage the job and run the job, but the folks who are running the concrete bucket or pulling the screed across the concrete or running a vibrator are primarily local talent in that area. There have been some instances where they've partnered or purchased a local company in those areas or formed some sort of a partnership or joint venture. When probably a primary example would be when I-64 was built through the middle of St. Louis. MoDOT's largest contract to date. They formed Gateway Constructors. You know, Gateway Constructors was not an ongoing operation. It was a joint venture with Granite Construction out of California, and then two local folks at that time, Fred Weber Inc. and Millstone, and they joint ventured, built that project, brought the folks from Granite they needed to bring. They used local field forces and got the project done. Granite went back to California and so on. The Musial Bridge, the same thing. MTA, Massman, Trailer, Alvarese. Kansas City company, company from Iowa, and a company from St. Louis. So the contractors have figured out, as these big projects come along and as the funding gets more fluid, they can be more fluid by partnering with local contractors in different parts of the world and pull this together. That's another service really that AGC has ended up providing.
AGC of America.
AGC of America,
right.
And our affiliation of local chapters is I can go onto AGC of America's website, all of our data gets fed up to them, and they can find contractors in Iowa or Cincinnati or Birmingham or wherever they need to go, build relationships there, and put those models together.
Guys who already have a team of laborers that they know do good work. Because
Yes.
the point of my question was that, you know, these contractors have guys here in the state of Missouri, and they know what to do because
Yes.
they've worked with them very closely, and the laborers know what's expected of them because they've done many, many projects. But then you take managers and go someplace else, and now you're starting with a fresh team. And that was my point, was to ask whether they could take their laborers with them, or no, we have to create a new team in these other towns.
I think they can, but they choose not to just because of the economics.
Okay. So your organization, AGC St. Louis, it's really, I mean, one of its main points is it's a lobbying organization.
Yes.
You lobby for the contractors that are members of your organization. So I imagine that you were involved more than peripherally in what became known as Amendment 7.
Yes, we were very involved in that. We were.
What happened?
Well, the history of funding for transportation in Missouri is sort of a sad story. Probably the last time there was any significant new money into the transportation system was 1992. And at that time, the gas tax was raised 6 cents in increments of 2 cents, 2 cents, and 2 cents over a 3-year period. To get that bill passed through the state legislature, the speaker at that time, or leadership in the legislature, went around and asked every legislator, well, what do you need to vote for this bill? And they'd give them a list of projects. What do you need to vote for this bill? They'd give them a list of projects. All those projects got put into this bill to get the votes. That was a great wish list, but the funding was this much and the wish list was this much.
As always.
So we got the bill passed, and then after the bill was passed, all the chickens started come home to roost, and all the legislators and all the local transportation community said, hey, you lied to us. You said you were going to do these projects with this new money, and you lied to us. We don't trust you.
Didn't these guys ever go to school and learn how to add?
Exactly.
You know, they could have. I mean, they're legislators.
Yeah. Trust me, I'll take care of it. Right. So that went on, and because of that, MoDOT got a horrible reputation with the legislators, with the public, with everything else. There were the pitchforks were out about MoDOT, that, we didn't get the projects we were supposed to get. We don't trust you. We're never going to vote for anything again. So that was a long process from 1992 maybe to 2002, 2005, 2006. We finally got something passed in 2000, I want to say it was 2008 or 2009, called Amendment B, that captured some currently existing money that was sales tax on vehicles and some license fees and some things like that were going into the general fund. We passed an amendment to be able to capture that money and bring it into MoDOT to help fund the DOT. That was it was a victory of sorts, but in effect it was a Band-Aid, because we still didn't have any additional funding. While fuel tax revenues have continued to drop, while costs for construction have continued to rise, we have this widening gap of expectations and ability to meet those expectations, which brings us to Amendment 7. So we thought, well, what are we going to do here? We've got to do something, because it was apparent that that gap was growing. The DOT projections were that the state transportation budget was going to go from $1.3 billion down to $600 million, and it's on the path to $300 million, which is $300 million sounds like a lot of money, but you spread it over the state, that doesn't.
Not when you were like $1.2 billion not that long ago.
That's a pretty thin layer. So, with that said, we thought, well, we have to look at doing something. So we started focus groups and started talking about what would you, as a AGC and some other construction associations funded, some polling, some focus groups to sort of figure out what might resonate with the public, what would be our hope of making anything happen. A sales tax resonated the best with the public. People did not want
to. By resonate, you mean least objectionable.
Exactly. That was the highest we ever got in the polling was maybe 52 or 53% on a sales tax.
It seems to me the problem is that the public has not been, you need to spend more time educating people as to, they think that when a road is built, it's built. What do we need to do with it? It's built. Not realizing that it's built, but it requires, well, you and I have talked about this, and I've talked to the audience before, roads are like teeth. So how many years can you afford not to go to the dentist before your teeth are wrecked. And that's
Right.
part of it. You have to maintain these roads on a regular basis.
And
it's costly.
Sure, it's costly. We're in a very difficult environment here in this part of the country. You know, Florida has the best roads in the country.
No salt.
No salt, no snow, no nothing.
No freezing.
No freezing. No freezing.
Freezing's what really
You know,
does it.
we have 100 degrees, 105 degrees in the summertime. We have -10 in the wintertime. That's extremely difficult.
Concrete is not happy.
For concrete
it's
or asphalt or
it's
the
just not
pavement
happy
underneath.
When it's just, you know, it's being stretched back. And then you run a 100,000-pound truck on it. And people would be shocked if they stood at the side of the road and a 100,000-pound truck. I've done it. 100,000-pound truck goes by. You can actually feel the concrete bouncing up and down.
I'm sure everybody sat on a bridge and felt that movement, and that same thing's happening not just on the bridge but all the way
But the
across.
concrete's
moving, and it's moving that subsurface underneath there, and you can continue to put layers of asphalt on the top temporarily, but that's only making
crumbled
worse.
Stone or
Exactly.
crumbled concrete underneath, which is what I understand Interstate 70 is. It's crumbled concrete with a layer of asphalt on top of it.
That's exactly correct. So the need to do something is very difficult to educate people about because, like you said, because of some of the ARRA funding, the American Road and Recovery Act, the stimulus,
yes,
the commonly known as the stimulus plan,
right.
Because of that money and because of bond issuance that we got from Amendment B, that money was all bonded. All of a sudden, we've got a new Mississippi River Bridge, we've got a new I-64, we've got a new Highway 141 out in West County that was built with the stimulus money. We've got the 2 bridges in St. Charles that are fixed in St. Louis. Really, when you look at the Missouri State Transportation Funding allocation, St. Louis received really a disproportionately high amount of that funding over the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. Amendment 7 failed most dramatically in St. Louis City and County because I believe, and it's very reasonable for people to look around and say,
what's the problem?
Everything looks fine to me.
Right.
Yeah, everything looks okay.
Exactly.
Not realizing that we're going from 1.2 billion to 300 million. The contractors are all going out of state. And I had a recent conversation with the chief engineer for MoDOT. They had a bridge, one of their normal inspections. They realized there was a column that was starting to fail. 5 years ago, no problem, I'll call somebody, I'll have them go out and fix that column. Now he's like, maybe we need to shut that bridge. Maybe we need to delay that. And so we're getting to that point. We don't see it today, we don't see it tomorrow, but I would say very soon
2017,
we're going to start to feel some pain.
They got a list of bridges.
The pain is going to start to be felt. You know, we just we passed a 1/4-cent sales tax for Metrolink 2 years ago, and that passed because, in my mind, because the folks at Metro went around and started putting little bags on the bus stop signs that said, this bus stop will close on such and such a day. This is going to close on such and such a day. And all of a sudden people realized, hey, people aren't going to be able to get to my business anymore. I better pass this. It passed. Mm-hmm. There's not that same experience with the road fund right now. You know, you talk about the wear and tear on the roads as part of the preparation for Amendment 7. You know, there is a lack of public understanding. A Prius, you know, people say, well, the users ought to pay. That's, if I heard that one. Well, it should be a user fee, okay? If you drive a Prius, that weighs more than a Chevy Impala. You're putting more wear and tear on the road with a Prius than you are with an Impala. You're probably paying 1/3 to 25% of what the person in the Impala is paying because we're based on a gasoline tax. Mm-hmm. I went up to Chicago, looked at when I was up there, one of the big concrete manufacturers, or ready-mix companies has changed their whole fleet over to CNG. So they're running on compressed natural gas all through the city of Chicago, all up and down at IDOT,
right. No
not
fuel
paying
tax,
a nickel
right. No fuel
in
tax.
gasoline tax.
By the way, we have about 3-4 minutes left here. I want to just briefly switch topics here, 3 minutes, because we've covered roads pretty thoroughly. Now let's talk about, vertical instead of horizontal. Only public money. There has been, for the last several years, a lot of discussion about using public money in order to build a new Rams football stadium. That's not going anywhere, is it?
No.
And just a little quick background, why?
Public money was used for the dome right now, and I think when you have public money, you have public uses that dome needs to be put to a convention center, et cetera, those sort of things. The clash between the football scheduling and public money and public use of a building doesn't work. I think the public sees there are a tremendous amount of other needs, whether it's the roads, whether it's the schools. We look at our education system. I don't think that the sports spending resonates with the public nearly like it did back in 07, 08 when the economy was booming. The economy is so much different now that the public's appetite to pay for circuses is over. They want to pay for bread now.
The bridges, maybe.
Correct. Correct.
The bridges that are going to be closing down.
Correct.
So as a result, then the Rams aren't going to get their new home.
I don't see how it's going to happen. I really don't see how they're going to be able to pull it together. Convention and Visitors Bureau has a lot of other uses for that dome. They cannot book. A citywide convention has to be booked 3 or 4 years ahead of time to use that floor space in that dome. Mm-hmm. They can't sell that until 6 months ahead of time until the NFL announces their schedule. So they are blocked from being able to use that space as a convention center. If the Rams don't sell hotel rooms, they don't sell restaurants, they don't sell nearly what a convention sells. So the Convention and Visitors Bureau would be happy to have more conventions.
So well, of course, rumor has it that the Rams might be leaving, might be going back to LA, which means then that the dome will still be there and available for these conventions.
Available for convention space, and I think that would be more attractive, and the Convention and Visitors Bureau would be able to be more aggressive in selling that space 2, 3, 4 years out. Then they're setting the schedule, not the NFL.
So the public is actually going to do better in the long run with the space that they paid for if the Rams aren't there than if they are there.
Under the current configuration, that's exactly right.
Very interesting. Well, we've pretty well covered the territory today. Thank you very much for that. We'll have to have you back and at some point in the future, and we can carry on with more project discussion as to both vertical and horizontal nature.
Happy to be here. Thank you, Lee.
Thank you very much. And to my audience, I've been speaking with Leonard Toenjes. He is the president of the Associated General Contractors of St. Louis, otherwise known as AGC. And we've had a very interesting discussion about what they do. This show is going to be uploaded to YouTube, so if you'd like to see it again or show it to someone, go to YouTube, look up Leonard Toenjes, Conversation with Lee Presser. Thank you. We'll see you next time.